down on my knees and pray that we will pay sin for love. 'Cause if you walk around the alleyway, you see the homeless people with no place to stay, so we must pay sin for love.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon and LFE, and Greg are with us also tonight, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation this evening. We've got quite a show lined up for you. Man, Ramon, I'll tell you what, there's been some crazy shit happening, not just only in the way my brain's been twisted into a pretzel the last few weeks, but I'm seeing a bizarre thing happen around the people that I'm interacting with. So we've got a core group of us here that are all working for this company that I work for. And there's me, Greg, and LFE here that are we're all very actively and vigorously pursuing consciousness and spirituality and growth and trying to understand and comprehend the world that we find ourselves in. And we're seeing kind of ripple effects around us in the other people that are working there at the company we work for.
Hundredth Monkey?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, this stuff is spreading. And we've got another guy.
Look,
the other guy.
you're not the only crazy one anymore, that's why.
No, that's true. So we had this other guy today that one of the guys that's actually on my crew that shared some stuff with did he share it with you?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Why don't you tell it?
So at work today, a buddy of ours comes up and says, "Hey, you got to go talk to this guy. Something crazy happened to him yesterday." And I'm like, and so I asked him, what happened? And he's like, "No, just go talk to him and he'll tell you everything." So I went on to where he was working at, and I asked him, "Hey, so-and-so just told me that something interesting happened to you last night." And I could tell he didn't want to tell me, and I could just see it in his face and his whole demeanor that he was just shooken up by it. So he finally ended up telling me. He told me that he went over to this other guy's house to feed his chickens, and all of his chickens were grouped up next to the front door of the house. And he didn't think too much about it, but when he looked out towards the wood line, he said about 12 feet away from him was this creature standing there that looked like an elk, but was about twice as big as an elk would be.
Wow, that's big.
So so we're talking 12 feet tall,
Yeah, but not only was it this, but it had two horns out of each side of its head like elk do, but it had a third horn coming out the front of its head, and the horn went out and wrapped around back and went down the back part of the animal.
That wasn't an elk.
Said that it was only about 12 feet away from him, giant, looking at him, and it turned around and walked towards the wood line. And as soon as it got to the wood line, it just stepped into the woods and disappeared. And it didn't make any sounds. And the wood line here, we have a ton of underbrush. So if you walk through it, I mean, you're going to be hurt. But this thing didn't make a sound, and it disappeared. But also, he said that it was giving off this, he said it was a blue-colored mist was coming off it, which I see in my mind as a blue aura around it. And when he was telling me this story, I could see it in his eyes, I could see it in his whole demeanor that he was just really shooken up by it. And then he comes up to me, so, we chit-chatted a little bit more, and I went back to work. And then he came up to me a few minutes later, and he said, "You ever go out and play underneath those big power lines, and you get that surge of energy through your body, or that tingling sensation through your body?" And so I know what he's talking about, but I said, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." And he says, "Yeah, that's how it felt the whole time I was looking at it, just so intense through my whole body. It was just had this amazing tingle, And man, I'm telling you, I live about a mile and a half from where this happened at, and about 8 months ago, I was laying in bed. And through the window, I heard some heavy breathing sound. And it was, about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I heard this heavy, nasally kind of sound but it was so loud, and it went on for 15 minutes or so. But it was so loud, I was able to take my phone and hit the recorder on it and put it in the window, and I was able to catch it on my phone because it was so loud. And when this thing was moving, I mean, you could tell how it was enormous. I mean, it was shaking the ground when it was moving. It was breaking big branches and, I mean, everything. So, I mean, I could hear it, and I could hear it breathing as well. So, there's been a couple instances that have happened out there in the last year or so.
It sounds, sorry to interrupt, but it sounds like it's a natural portal that might be there.
Yeah.
That blue mist is, a lot of planes when they go missing, they talk about either the greenish or bluish mist and the electrical static in the air and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking after I heard that story, and I've always been drawn to this place. I've tried to leave it so many times and have come back. But I was actually thinking, I'm gonna get some dowsing rods and I'm gonna find these energy lines, and see where they're traveling. I mean, I've been living there for, I've been back there for about 8 years now, and I don't know, there's something going on up there, and I just want to, try to figure out what's happening. But what Tom was saying earlier about all the guys at work, I'm definitely noticing it, and it's just, us three are there, and it almost seems like a grounding rod or something, or the opposite of a grounding rod, a takeoff point there. Because there's, I keep on catching people's side conversations, and they're talking about some crazy shit, and some stuff that, I don't think they would have been talking about, on a whole, a few years ago.
How about a few months ago?
Or a few months ago, even, yeah. I mean, 2015, man, it's something else about this year.
Well, I mean, at the same time, Tom doesn't care what people think about him.
Yeah.
He's said that plenty of times.
Yeah.
So with you three guys talking about it, you guys are making it okay for the guys who are having experiences. Where before it was like, no, I don't want to get associated with Tom. But now it's like it's more than just Tom.
Yeah, it's the end thing now.
Yeah.
When I first started there, Tom was this crazy alien guy. He's who's that guy? But now he's like one of my good friends.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's making it okay, and I think that's what's really needed. One of the news I want to cover really quickly, and it's especially for you guys who do like a lot of either planting in your house or farming like you do, Tom. The average person flushes the toilet 5 times a day, and about, I think it was 4,000 gallons of clean water get used up, with these flushes per year per person. And this article talks about using your urine as a fertilizer. And I don't know if you guys remember, a couple of years ago I was using it, and I would use 20% urine and then 80% water and put it in my plants. When I did that consistently, the parsley and the mints were growing like these huge leaves on it. So this article just talks about how using the way they do it's different than I do, is actually having a compost, sealed off compost, and then pouring the urine in there every time you fill up a bottle, and then you just go and pour it into your compost. So the article's up on our Facebook page, and that's something you guys should look at, because I didn't realize that that's true. We waste that much water with something that's like amazing for your plants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
I saw that article that you dropped on there, and immediately I thought, well, I guess I'm going to have to start peeing in a bottle now. I mean, that or just step out the back door.
You pay for water there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. On top of that, you're paying for the water that you're throwing away. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Especially you got a nice big garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do it every time I go to the bathroom. I pee in the bottle, and then I have some extra pots that I'm gonna plant something when it gets a little warmer there, and then I just pour the pure urine into it because there's no plants into it. So the idea that water is going to evaporate, but it's going to leave all that good stuff behind it. So I keep it in the sun and out where it can get any rain. So by the time I plant something there, it's nice and fertilized because I used these pots, this dirt, a couple of years ago. So, get the nutrients back in there. And like Tom was saying, that whole symbiotic kind of thing, that process that happens, the plant starts getting what it needs from your body, but then it starts providing what your body needs.
Right.
What is it? You make it. What was the word you used, Tom? You program it.
Oh yeah, you're basically programming the. Well, I think I use that in relation to using. Putting the seed in your mouth or spitting on it before you plant it. And basically that's programming that seed to provide the nutrients that specific saliva or urine, I mean, I'm sure this works the same way with urine, that it actually programs it for your specific needs, the nutrients that your body specifically needs.
Yeah, now I'm growing blueberries, so I've been doing that with the blueberry plants too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so
anyway...
Yeah, let's get our guest on here.
I want to hear his what he thinks about what happened with that giant.
Yeah, definitely. So, guys, I'm going to keep this bio short and sweet, and we have Darryl Berry Jr. back with us. We had him on last month, and if you guys would like the full bio, I would urge you to pop on over to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com and read it for yourself, and actually listen to that show too, because it was a fantastic show. We kind of targeted that show around the out-of-body travel thing, but we kind of didn't really talk about it a whole lot. We got into so many other subjects that first hour. Oh my God, he did such an amazing discourse on love, and I was just totally impressed with the way he described what love is. So it's definitely a good listen, guys, and I would go back and check it out. So, Darryl Berry Jr., welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I enjoyed myself. I'm sure I will enjoy it today as well.
Yeah. Sorry I can't offer you any coffee.
That's fine.
But as you guys know out there, this is the way we like to have our conversations is, get the feeling that we're all just sitting around, all of us and just enjoying coffee, listening to Darryl. So, Tom, I had spoke to Darryl and we were talking about how we want to go into the whole UFO and his personal alien experience and what he thinks is going on out there and down here. So I'm going to gear it that way if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think that story that LFE shared ties right into this quite well. I think there's some portal things. So what's your take on that experience that was shared there, Darryl?
I really don't know. I've heard similar experiences of strange type beings. I don't even remember if I read it or somebody told me about it, but there was this lady who lived in some rural area and she had her pet dog was barking at something outside. She didn't know what it was. And when she went and looked, she saw these beings that looked like, they just looked like a whole bunch of hair, except they had big giant teeth. You know what? The way she describes it, it reminds me of that. You remember that movie Critters? But right. Imagine like 6 foot tall critters. That matter of fact, that's what the description reminded me of. And they were just standing outside they came up to the house and were just staring at them through the window. And I remember this guy. What was his name? This guy who made this DVD series called Interview with an Ex-Vampire. He gave a whole lot of strange experiences of strange beings he met. So I don't really know what's up with that. It could be a portal, like you were saying, a portal to a different dimension. I don't know. I don't really know about that. It seems quite interesting. I wish you would have taken a picture of it. Then he would have been able to see if it was physical or non-physical. With the aura, could have been some kind of non-physical thing as well. I don't really know. I haven't really seen anything like that before. I've seen the ETs and stuff like that, but I haven't really seen many like animals or things like that.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of too. Has anybody watched The Princess of Mononoke?
No.
Nope.
You guys never, Jake, you never watched that, Greg?
I haven't seen it.
Oh my
I
God!
have to look it up.
Oh, the Princess of Mononoke.
Mononoke. So Monoke. It's animation by the guys who do Ghibli. I don't know if you're familiar. Famous. I mean, they made animation famous. This company. They have like tons of great movies, but this one in particular, there's a part where like God comes down in this kind of form of this giant deer kind of thing, and the main character, you know, like talks to God through this. So it really reminded me of that, you know.
There's a lot of legends out there about the white stag.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's right in line with. I mean, as soon as I heard this story, that's the first thing that popped in my mind was the white stag legends. So maybe it was some nature spirit that he came across and or was touching base with him and activating something within him. So
yeah, or dropping a message or something, you know.
So, anyways, let's move on from that. That was an interesting experience, and I haven't talked to this guy myself, and I'm going to definitely have a conversation with him tomorrow and get my let my intuition and kind of probe into what he experienced and see what I pull out of it. So.
Yeah.
On with the show.
So, with your personal experience, speaking of the UFOs, did something like bring you interest to it? Was it something that's passed down through your family?
You know what? I've never really asked my relatives about it because it's just so far afield of what they're into. But in my research, though, I found that most people who've had sightings, they find that their relatives have had sightings as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, not sightings, but I mean experiences that they may be able to, if not remember it fully, they may be able to give some indications, of missing time or some kind of indication that they've had experiences. But it did start when I was a child. But the thing about that is, like, if you go into contacts that we have, like for instance Bashar and Sasha with Lisrael, they all say that everybody has contact. Just like with the out-of-body experience, we was talking about how really everybody has out-of-body experiences as a natural part of sleep. And I've seen people in the out-of-body experience that may not remember it, but they have them. So everybody, according to them, has had sightings and has had experiences. It's just there's several factors that cause us to not remember or to even deny and repress those experiences. For instance, fear. I mean, there's no mistaking when you are consciously in the presence of an extraterrestrial or an interdimensional being. It is very clear that it's something foreign. Like the energy of it is so foreign, and we spend so much time making differences on Earth that we neglect to recognize how sane we are until we actually run into something that has a truly different energy from Earth. So just being in the presence of that strange energy can cause people to shut down and black out the memories. But according to them, literally everybody has had some kind of experience, if not physical, at the least on the non-physical level, on the planet Earth.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, in old times, at least, 200 to 300, and even now, if you go to certain jungles and find, people in a tribe, you're so foreign to them that actually there's probably no difference. And a lot of, especially with the tribes, they probably have more contact with extraterrestrials than they do with other humans. So,
I agree.
Yeah, so you'll be more of an alien than those quote-unquote aliens would be. So it kind of reminds me of that, because I would hear stories here, like, here there's the story of the Tengu, and there's like two different ones. There's one that's a bird type, and then there's one that's more of a human type. It's like a white with a big nose and kind of like reddish face, and that just reminds me, like, there might have been a Russian person coming in through the east coast of Russia down into into Japan, and that was an alien for them.
Very possible. I mean, at different times we was more foreign to each other. I remember hearing a story about Magellan where apparently when the big ships came over, they had never seen ships like that, and they literally could not see the ships until the shaman who was able to see the ships described it to him, and then they was able to suddenly see the ships. So the divide is a lot less. Because we're so clearly becoming a global society, which is part and parcel of why the topic of extraterrestrials is coming more to the forefront. Because according to these races, every single society at some point becomes a global society, and the only type of society that extraterrestrials are able to consciously and openly interact with are global societies. It's kind of difficult to land and have a peaceful interaction when you're dodging bombs that the people are shooting at each other. So that's one reason why we don't have open contact. We're too busy fighting each other. Not to mention fighting them. Like if you study Stephen Greer, he spoke with a lot of people in these government agencies or whatever who've seen or heard various things, and different people come to him with information. And he's even seen it himself how sometimes they even have craft with certain type of longitudinal weapons where they operate on principles that's more along the lines of the ET craft, because they've studied these technologies and thought that back engineer them and actually try to shoot these crafts down. So we just have so much craziness going on the planet, but definitely we're more globally inclined than we were before. I mean, like we have the internet right now. I mean, we're all in different parts of the world are having a conversation as if we're sitting in the same room. So definitely, I would say the strangeness amongst us is lessening, and that's what allows the strangeness of true extraterrestrials to be less strange. As we're starting to bridge the gap, because we're starting to see the oneness amongst ourselves, and when we do that, we'll really see that we one with them as well. The ironic thing is, they see us as a part of their family. Like we are just starting to recognize the human race as one family, but they recognize the galactic family as one family. So it's just different levels of the same recognition that we still all just one people.
Yeah, that makes me wonder whether after we get over this, it'll be like this section of the galaxy. I'm going to use Star Trek terms because I don't know what terms they would use, like the Alpha Quadrant, Beta Quadrant. It's like, oh, I've heard about those people in the Beta Quadrant, but, I'm going to stick with, these people in the Alpha Quadrant kind of mentality.
It won't be that way, simply because in order to get, and this is from like Stephen Greer and like Bashar, I believe Sasha mentions this a bit as well. In order to be a truly intergalactic society, I'm not talking about how we think about it, like getting into a space shuttle and like cryogenic sleep and floating through space for a few years to get somewhere. I'm talking about in order to actually be like one of these races who can travel from star system to star system in a reasonable amount of time, you have to have developed your consciousness enough to think beyond certain limits. So if you think beyond the limits of time and space enough to shift your craft from the physical dimension into a non-physical dimension, to travel from here to 1,000 light years away outside of the limits of the speed of light and then shift back down, you have to be thinking at a broader scale. So, a true being that gets here from another planet, they recognize everyone is one person. They have to have that level of consciousness in order to even develop a consciousness interactive technology that would allow them to get here. So if they're here, they see us as family. I mean, there's no getting around it. Otherwise, we would probably be dead right now. I mean, there's so many people talking about, like we have, they're starting to make this new Independence Day movie, and we have all of these movies about ETs coming here to blow us up, as if a being who came from 1,000 light years away would actually need to fight. I mean, if they have that kind of technology, I mean, they could just be, on planet Mars and press a button and we would all be gone. So, clearly they're not hostile. The craft I've seen, I mean, if you see these craft, I mean, it's very clear that the technology is so far beyond the technology that we have that if they wanted to kill us, we would not be here. If they saw us as foreign and were hostile, we wouldn't be here. I mean, and the fact is, they've already demonstrated a willingness to help. Like there's several accounts of them going to nuclear facilities around the planet and turning off the nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
The nuclear weapons, the effect that they have goes beyond the physical dimension, and it causes problems to other beings, even away from this planet. So, they let us blow up a bomb or two here to experiment or whatever, but they let us know very clearly that they will not allow like a global nuclear holocaust like the Terminator movies or whatever, because it simply has an effect beyond this planet. So clearly they see us as family. Clearly they see even other beings that's not coming here as family, because they want to stop us from destroying the fabric of space with massive nuclear war. So, any being that's traveling like that, they definitely don't think about that. Now, the idea that comes from is, like you were mentioning, Star Trek. I think Star Trek is beautiful. It's one of my favorite series. I saw the Next Generation and Voyager and Deep Space Nine. I love it all.
No, I love Deep Space Nine.
But the fact is, that is still a projection of our interpretation of what extraterrestrial life will be, which means it can only go so far afield from our base level of understanding. I mean, so these people are interstellar people who walk, travel, and they fight each other. I mean, that just doesn't really happen. I mean, the Pleiadians in the society, you would not see those guys fighting each other. It just doesn't happen. By the time they can travel to that point, it just doesn't happen. So the fact is, like it was always said, fiction is stranger, the reality is stranger than fiction, as they say. So, we'll find that, and Besar said this specifically. He spoke about how Star Trek is very instrumental, and that it opened up our ideas about, possibilities beyond. I mean, that was introduced, I think, in the 60s and 70s when it was still like in the Cold War with Russia or whatever. So, it introduced a unified planet. I mean, that was progress. It introduced, a moneyless society, not a cashless society where it's like digital money and everybody's being controlled, but a truly moneyless society where we just realize money is meaningless and worthless, and let's just cooperate as human beings who are one family on the planet, So it introduced a lot of things, but at the same time, we'll find that the way these societies actually work is still light years away, forgive the pun, from Star Trek, so,
Yeah, well, when I was talking about that, I wasn't referring to them. I was referring to us. Like now, for example, you'll find, you still find racism. Well, you find it a lot here on the planet, but then you have the next level of it where a lot of, sometimes I'll hear speakers and it's just like an expansion of ignorance.
In other words, like the people who say,
So like, instead of saying, I don't like white people, or I don't like black people, it's like, I don't like those damn grays, or I don't like those Pleiadians. They've expanded their ignorance to
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I mean, but the same thing applies to us, though. Before we get to the point when we are interstellar, we will have to transcend that. So the same thing applies to us. It's the same situation. The societies that's reaching us, they surpass that. And the societies, in order for us to be one of those societies, we will have to surpass that. And the fact is, I mean, that is a sort of progress because, at least we're starting to think beyond each other in a sense. I mean, we still have an idea of separation, but at least we're starting to kind of see people on planet Earth as one people. Of course, it'll be, like you said, just an extension of ignorance to then project that duality and separation onto other races. But in the end, I'm pretty certain that we'll surpass that.
Yeah. So let's go back in time and let's go talk about what you experienced as a kid and what kind of people were you dealing with at that time.
It was actually the Greys. I remember seeing this short Gray standing in the door of the front door of the house, and I would be just standing in the living room staring at it. And I had never heard anything about a gray before. I remember at one point seeing a show on TV at some point about a disc craft, and it reminded me of them. I don't know how their craft looked in particular, because I didn't really see their physical craft at the time that I know of. But it would just be a regular occurrence of seeing this gray alien standing in. One thing that I found out just recently is very common is that I believed, or I was told, that they were my real family. They were my real parents. So I would say from the age, let's say, 3 to 7, or I don't know the exact age, but somewhere around there, I had the certain belief and experience that my true family were these gray beings here, and for some reason or by some mechanism, I was somehow trapped on Earth and stuck in the surrogate family, and I longed to go home. So it was pretty interesting, and I had a string of either dreams or like I would be standing in the front of the house and in the yard, and I would see this craft hovering above the tree, and I doubt that this was an actual craft. I think it was some kind of maybe screen memory of one, but it looked like a hand, like it was shaped like a hand. If you just put your fingers together and outstretch your hand, it would just hovering above the tree. And sometimes I would see the gray alien being standing in the yard as well. And other times I would be just standing in the front of the yard, and I would see fleets of craft going across the sky of all different shapes and sizes. And about a year or two ago, I read this book called Beyond My Wildest Dreams by this lady, Kim Carlsberg, and she shared the exact same experience. She had all kind of gray encounters, and later in her life, like I guess in her early 20s or whatever, and she would have the same thing. She would have experience with seeing them, and as well she would have frequent dreams of seeing fleets of craft going across the sky.
I've had that same dream.
Awesome. That likely. Do you remember seeing actual beings, like I was saying, seeing them in your house or something like that?
I remember because they change like through the periods of time, but in the beginning it was where it looked like somebody took a pencil and was drawing out where these, like, to use a Star Trek term, cloaked ships were flying over. I was in Times Square in a dream, and they were like drawing it out, so I can
drawing in the sky where they were.
Yeah, so I would see these fleets, and then other times, then later it turned to more like the ships started looking more like the ships from Stargate, the human ships. If anybody ever watched SG-1 or any of those, it would manifest out of the clouds. So it just looked like clouds coming over, and then it would come out of the clouds. Like it had the technology to be a cloud, and then reform back to a regular ship. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it's quite interesting because if you're looking like Bible stories, if I remember right, Moses was led by a pillar of cloud. You remember that story?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure a lot of those stories in the Bible or ET encounters, as well as out-of-body experiences, you can see references to that in the Bible as well. So it's clear that these things have been going through our society for a long time. Another interesting thing that I experienced at the time, and I didn't explore it, but there was a period of time where I experienced them teaching me how to make a craft, like an interstellar craft, and it seemed like I don't know if they downloaded me the information or they telepathically transmitted it to me, but it was like when I was around that age, in my mind, my experience was that I knew how to construct one. And at one point in time, I considered trying to write the plans down, but I was afraid because I didn't want the people here to find it. I don't know if you ever heard the story of. Have you ever heard the story of what is that guy's name? I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. But there was this guy who he was when he was in like middle school or high school, he started making rockets for fun, and he started having dreams where he was learning how to make more and more advanced rockets through his dreams. And eventually he got to the point where he made this fusion-type engine where it literally housed a fusion reaction, and the reaction was so hot. And you know how rockets use fins, like those little fins to steer themselves? It couldn't even use that. He had to develop an electromagnetic steering system where it actually used electromagnetism to steer itself, because the heat coming from it was so hot that it would melt like any metal that was close to it. So, like the heat within the engine was funneled through an electromagnetic bottle and directed that way. And it went so fast that he said when he shot it up, it literally sucked the air from your lungs. Like you stood back and it went up, and all the air literally sucked out your lungs. Just how fast it went up into the sky. But he said when he shot it, the government, they noticed it. So they read it, and it was like, what the hell is that? So next thing you know, government agencies descended upon his location trying to figure out what in the world is going on. They're like, I guess going to the DEFCON 1 thing or some attack is going on. And they ended up taking his rocket, and they were going to use it to attack somebody overseas. I think it was in the Cold War at the time. And one of them actually wanted to use his rocket to shoot a nuclear missile over there. And because it went so fast that they would not be able to respond, with our normal rockets, if you send it, they would have enough time to see it coming to send their rockets, and that's where, mutually assured destruction comes in. But that rocket went so fast that by the time they saw it coming, they would be destroyed. So he ended up destroying it, and he didn't make any more rockets after that. So even then, as a kid, I had some idea if I try to develop this technology, I'm going to have to some kind of way protect it from the humans. So I kind of pushed that information away. But that's just a snippet of information, so I don't know how accurate that perception was. But, it kind of lends credence that he had a similar experience, but he lent it to the idea of dreams. Like he learned how to make this advanced engine. As a matter of fact, after he made his engine, the government, when they, came and accosted him and took his rocket and stuff, he said they took him to Area 51. And what happened here is when they noticed his engine configuration was similar to something they had. They had an engine from a craft UFO. And they brought him in and tried to get him to show them how to fix the engine that they had. Apparently, the engine they had was damaged in the crash. And, he didn't find out if it just crashed or they shot it down. Like I said, they have these weapons that they reverse engineered. So, but the engine was damaged. And they let him go look at it. And he said when he looked at it, he saw the configuration of the engine, and it was like a more advanced version of his rocket engine that they had in his craft. So, that's quite interesting. But he said it was clearly an extraterrestrial engine. And he said it was clearly, like I was talking about, it was consciousness interactive. Like when he put his hand on it, it interacted with his emotions. And at first he was very curious and in awe. And it was radiating like this blue energy where he touched it at. And then when he finally realized that they had this alien technology and they was hiding it from the people, he got angry. And then the engine where he was touching it at, a red glow started to come from it, as if it changed according to his emotions. So he looked, he was like, wow, the engine is actually reacting to my feelings as I touch it. And that's when he realized, when he looked at the engine, he couldn't see all the different connections that his engine had. It was missing the control connections. And he realized that the people were able to plug into the engine and control it with their consciousness. So, he was able to make an engine on par with their engine. Of course, not as advanced because he still had to use terrestrial technology, but he could actually see his engine as a sort of prototype, as you can say, of the more advanced engine. And he learned that. He was taught in his dreams, I'll find this guy's name.
Who is that, Ramon? We had him on the show.
Did we?
You know what I'm talking about.
No, I know who he is, but I can't remember if we did have him on the show or not. Yeah, because he was dealing with the rocket, and the rocket that you're talking about. Actually,
he's the one that actually did the test flights and stuff. Remember?
Yeah, but what's his name? The rocket engineer?
No, not Von Braun.
No, Von Braun was there during the test, and he had thrown some like a bunch of like pebbles and stuff into his rocket to damage it.
That's right. He put some kind of grease on there. He knew that the grease would have an interaction with the rocket, and that's how he destroyed it before it was able to use it as a weapon.
Yeah, he was like 17. I can't remember his name right now.
It'll come to me. I know I got it up on my laptop somewhere. Something with an A. And right now I think he does like he doesn't build rockets anymore, but he does like aviation or something. Like he just does jet rockets or something. Like he works on them, but he doesn't build rockets anymore because he knew like this 5-star general, and the general told him, General LeMay, he knew, and the dude told him, look, you need to, if you want to have any kind of normal life, you need to never make a rocket again for the rest of your life. So, he stopped making rockets.
Did they make a movie out of this kid?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, well, because there's this movie that I seen a few years ago called October Sky, where this kid lived in somewhere back east in the mountains in rural country town, and it's back. I think it took place back in the 50s. But him and a couple of his buddies ended up teaching themselves how to build rockets. So that's what kind of reminded me of was, because he had no experience in doing it, he just figured it out.
So, there's all sorts of stuff that people attribute to, I got this inspiration in the dream, or it came to me while I was in the shower. There's so many different things that have been developed from that sort of inspiration, coming out of the dream state, what we term as the dream state, or let's call it a different state of perception or different state of reality.
That's right.
So, I guess what I'm trying to drive to here is the abilities that these extraterrestrials have and the access to those dream states that they have that we seem to be lacking in or at least from our conscious state. And I'm curious if what you're seeing like the out-of-body state as the sort of state that the extraterrestrial are able to access readily to be able to feed information.
Definitely, because my understanding is that the ETs, like us, our base state right now is beta. And the ETs, their base state is the alpha to theta range, mostly the theta range. So a lot of what we consider to be dreams, like our level of dream, is mostly their level of reality. That's why if you research like a lot of the ET craft, they reverse engineer or fly. David Greer spoke about this, of why they called Area 51 Dreamland. One of the reasons why is because when they reverse engineer a craft or make a craft that operates along these principles and they fly it, when they're flying it, it's like they enter a lucid dream. Because these craft are based upon the principles of shifting dimensions. So, and that's another reason why we lose memory when we have these experiences so often, because these beings operate on the theta level, and when we're in their presence, it causes us to shift towards that level. Like how Bashar calls it a third reality. So they operate on their level, like the theta level. We operate on our level. So in order for us to communicate, we have to bridge. So we come down a bit, and they come up a bit, and we meet. That's how, for instance, Bashar is able to have telepathic contact and Lisrael with Sasha, because Bashar, they step their vibrations down, we step our vibrations up, and the communication happens in the middle. Well, being that we are still based on beta, when we go into an altered state like with the out-of-body experience, or we go into a physical encounter state, and we start to shift into these altered states, since we don't have the experience being conscious at those levels, well, guess what? We don't remember what happens. So that's one of the reasons why we have missing time in those experiences. I mean, I've heard sometimes it is because, whatever beings are interacting with them actually try to, stifle their memories. But some of it is also simply that for the same reason why we fall asleep when we're meditating, for the same reason we don't remember our dreams, for the same reason we don't remember our out-of-body experiences, because these beings operate at those levels, and we lose awareness at those levels. So, and again, like you were saying, that's why people get so many ideas from dreams. Not only can it be information from them who operate on these levels, it can also be information from our higher selves or other aspects of our own mind. What we call the unconscious or the subconscious. So all of these things can be accessed by entering these altered states. So I definitely see meditation, altered state awareness, and the out-of-body experience as all interrelated. They're all interrelated. The better you get at meditation, the more you'll be able to remember your out-of-body experiences. The better you get at out-of-body experiences, the more you'll be able to consciously enter altered states. And the more you consciously remember altered states, the more you'll be able to consciously remember the encounters you have with these beings, as well as the information you get during sleep or during dreams when we do have interactions. And I think that's one of the things that allowed me to remember the experiences I've had, because you remember, during that period of time, I was having out-of-body experiences regularly. So whether it was a non-physical encounter when I was a kid, or whether it was a physical encounter and I was shifted into theta while I was walking around, which is why it seemed so surreal and dreamy, because I was practiced at the time at being conscious in these altered states. I was able to bring back the experiences, just like with my consciously initiated experiences when I saw those crafts. I was practicing meditation on a regular basis. So when I was able to shift, or when I was shifted in the presence of these craft, I was able to still hold on to my awareness to a large extent and bring back a lot of the experiences. So I think what ends up happening is with most people, because we're so divorced from these altered states and we're so fragmented in our awareness, we have such a great divide between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. These experiences and the thoughts and the ideas that we get during sleep, we don't bring them back to conscious awareness. But the thing is, I don't really think that means that those experiences and that learning is lost, because a lot of times, even in conscious life, we may have an idea to do something or a feeling about something, and we may not know where it comes from, and we may just call it a hunch. But my understanding is, even the learnings that we get, it still has an effect upon us, So just like with those, with the learning that I got from those three beings of light that visited me, whether they were non-physical beings or whether they were these gray aliens that were transmitting information telepathically, even though I didn't unravel most of the information, I'm certain that it guided me, because I was able to quickly cipher through information and find the right book and realize this book, it was just gibberish, and I was able to accelerate my learning. Like as I talk to people in the field, and I might see where different people are, I would say, wow, I was reading that when I was 17 or whatever, So I was able to see how I was able to accelerate through a lot of things, and I think largely because the information I was able to pull through these altered states.
Yeah, it reminds me of when people say, like, some people might listen to you and say, that guy lives in dreamland. And I think it's the reverse, because I agree with you 100%, where the majority of people are living in dreamland, because if you're not fully aware and conscious of all these different aspects of your reality, then, you're the one living in kind of a dreamland.
Ramon, you picked up on what I was just getting ready to talk about. Is Darryl, I think we got it backwards. I think the larger reality is that alpha state, theta state, versus what we experience here in this, what we term as the greater reality.
That's right.
Our greater reality, the physical reality, is kind of, I don't know, I think we got it completely backwards, where this is kind of the, like a bubble reality that is kind of a dream, a collective dream that we're having, and the real or more real reality is that stepped up state, that higher vibrational state that actually is encompasses more of the universe than what we actually perceive here in the third dimension.
I agree. Like the beta focus reality is a very, very, very tight focus. It's a very, very tight and very selective focus. You know, like the only way that we can really stay focused the way we are is to deny and ignore and repress much more than we take in. You know, so I would say that's definitely the case. You know, as we start to expand our reality, it does become actually more dreamy. You know, but I mean, you know, that's not to say that that is more real, because really the whole universe is a dream. You know,
Right.
Several of these races will talk about that, but at the same time, within the experience of the world being real, there's still different levels of the dream, and I would definitely say that the alpha theta range is actually more, quote, real than the beta state, simply because the beta state is a state of segregation, separation, a very tight selective focus, whereas when you get into alpha, theta, delta, when you get into a fourth density thought and the ways of thinking that these extraterrestrial races, these advanced extraterrestrial races delve into and live in, is much more expansive, much more broad. You know, so, you know, but I've run into that. I mean, but at a certain point, though, like I remember years ago, I used to be very self-conscious, and I guess to a certain extent I might still be. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not always a everyday conversation or whatever, talking about UFOs or whatever. But at a certain point, the evidence just wins out. I mean, you know, I really think anybody a person today who doesn't know that extraterrestrials are real, who doesn't know that altered states and out-of-body experiences are real, who doesn't know that you could learn valid things through dreams, I think they just don't want to know. You know, and I think that, you know, because I mean, there's just so much evidence. It's so easy. I remember I was talking to somebody at work, and you know, this happened to be one of the times when I was talking about UFOs and out-of-body all the time and stuff. And I said, look, all you have to do is do like I did. Just sit in meditation and ask to see them, and I guarantee you will see them, you know. And I would ask these people, hey, did you try it? No. You know?
Right.
Well, why don't
I
you
did
try
once.
it? You know? Huh?
I did it for about 10 minutes and nothing happened.
Yeah, you know, but people I talked to didn't try it at all. It's not easier. Or the people who say, you know what, I'll believe UFOs and extraterrestrials are real when the government tells me. I mean, the government said it was a weather balloon. So, I mean, if it was real, they would tell us. What? I mean, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
if the only
I've
way you're
heard
going
that
to accept it, huh? Yeah, you know, if the only way you're going to accept it is if the government tells you, then obviously you just don't want to know. You know, but the fact is, like Bashar has said, and like Liz Royale has said, because, you know, one of the things that the Pleiadians did for us is the Pleiadians accessed the Earth timeline, not our Earth timeline, but they accessed a timeline of the Earth 1,200 years into the future. And the beings that she connected us to was called the Travelers. And they described how their Earth is. They described the process that they went through to get to their Earth, which now is an interplanetary Earth. You know, it's a one world Earth, no government, you know, peaceful, you know, everything that we think about, like Star Trek, but like for real, you know, like and without all the warring and everything, all the stuff that we project onto it. And but their Earth was actually a lot worse than ours. Like you know, when they described like we had that recent incident with Fukushima, and we're still making it along fine, but in their Fukushima, like the whole area of Japan, most of Japan was destroyed when they had that Fukushima. Now it's just like leaking water into the ocean, and it is very bad. But the scale of bad on their planet was much worse. Apparently the tyranny that they went to, the level of tyranny they went to, and government oppression was much worse. And they still made it to a free, global, peaceful, interstellar society where like ETs are walking around like normal, and there's not so much a divide amongst the races. Like a lot of people today talk about different races mixing, like as if we actually have different races on Earth. Really, we're just all human beings. But that's actually part of it. You know, as we start to, you know, quote, black people start having kids with, quote, white people, and then, quote, white people start having kids with, quote, Japanese people, and, quote, what we're doing is we're starting to integrate the different genomes on the planet. So eventually, like if you go into all these different extraterrestrial races, they all look the same. Like it's not like they have such great divisions amongst themselves. There might be differences, but it's less pronounced. So our so-called mixing amongst each other with these false distinctions is actually the groundwork of what would eventually be a more integrated genome, 1,000 years from now, where we won't have such a great division of appearance. But listening to their description of their world, I mean, it's very clear that we're going to reach a level where we're one planet and we're one whole people, and it's just a matter of time. So all the things that's going on with the denial that people have, I mean, it is either they'll just go to their alternate timeline where they experience that, but it's just a part of the transition, But I have no doubt that we're going to get there. It's just how fast we're going to get there and
how much it will hurt.
Right.
That's right. How much it'll hurt, and that's why I promote the idea of extraterrestrials and make an interaction, because that's actually integral to our evolution as a species. As they told us, as the beings visiting us told us, there comes a point in time when every planet becomes unified. And as you said, it just depends on how much it's going to hurt. Either we become unified because we choose to recognize that we are one people and we're unified, or we choose to become unified because we see each other as separate, and one group of people happen to become more powerful, or we believe they're more powerful, and they, make one tyrannous world government, which would happen on that traveler's planet. But eventually, that tyrannous one world government turns into something good, and it fell away to an actual peaceful society. But we have the ability to not let that happen right now by the choices that we make, by what we do right now, So and that's why I think it's important that we start to consciously interact, because going into the government, it's not that we have to wait, or we should wait for the government to tell us. Really, we have to tell them, and that's what happened on their planet. On their planet, what happened is what's happening now. Like if you look at Stephen Greer, he has a CE5 initiative. L'Israel, she has her contact expeditions. After I get travel far out and I could take less attention away from that, I'm going to start my own contact groups, where we start having contact groups where we go out and I teach people to do what I did. And as a group, we go see these craft. And what happened on their planet, people started doing that all over the planet. So all over the planet, people were just, aliens was landing and talking to people. And the government was literally left behind.
Right.
So the people left them behind.
And that was what's happening here.
Exactly. So we don't have to worry about them. And that's why I'm not so, I used to be so much against, not to say that I'm for government by any means, but I used to be so, let's fight against them and get them out. And not only when I tried to do that, people wouldn't participate anyway. I mean, people will like a Facebook post or whatever, but when you're like, okay, let's do something, it's like crickets. But other than that, it's not up to them anyway.
Right.
But I mean, all we have to do is just develop ourselves, like you were saying. Like, that's a perfect example, Tom, where you were saying how you have this group and you all are starting to get together and focus on development and consciousness and progression, and is expanding. That's what it's about. So all we have to do is continue doing that, and what's going to happen is one day we're going to look up and say, well, wasn't there such a thing as a government and money? I mean, what happened with all that stuff? I don't know. Well, let's keep on having fun, And so all we have to do is just keep progressing as individuals and collectively and as brothers and sisters on Earth, and then we will eventually recognize that all of these beings visiting us are brothers and sisters as well. The Essassani and the Shalinai and the Pleiadians and the Aldebarans, like Alice Collier is a contact with the Aldebarans. Like there's so many different races of extraterrestrials visiting here, and it's just really up to us. According to Bashar, at this point we're honorary members of the Galactic Society. Like he's talking about, is it going to be a situation with us about not, spreading our racism towards each other races? Well, from their perspective, they are already united. So we won't be able to join unless we accept everybody, which again goes to the fact that I mean, we're not going to get to the point of being interstellar until we go beyond such trivial things. And but they have the Interstellar Society, and according to Bashar, we're honorary members of the foundation. So already they consider us sort of baby members of their foundation, even though most of us may not be aware of it, but enough of us are that they acknowledge us as honorary members. And Bashar also said that that we're taken off of quarantine. In other words, there was a period of time where they actually had a rule, like the ETs actually had a law or a rule amongst themselves to not openly interact with us. Like they were able to make these, little one-off things. Like there was this big thing about Billy Meyer, for instance, but things like the Phoenix Lights, a big 2-mile wide craft flying over a state, that stuff wasn't able to happen in the past. But we progressed enough to where they're no longer the ones staying away. We're the ones that it's up to us. When we decide we're ready for open contact, they can come in. It's no longer a situation where they have to keep their hands off. Like we were talking about Star Trek, like the Prime Directive. You no longer have the Prime Directive with us anymore. There's enough people who's aware. There's enough people who's conscious. There's enough people who's actively doing like you're doing, progressing with consciousness, who's actively seeking out contact with them, like all of these different CE5 groups around the planet that are growing up. They don't have their hands off with us anymore. So it's really up to us. And the more that we share, the more that we do, the great service that you all are doing, like with the show, where people are becoming more aware of what's going on and the ideas of traveling. And you can see how, like you were saying earlier, how the conversation is less strange. Like it used to be so hands off, it used to be a cult. Now it's just like New Age. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so it's just what it's going to be. Catch up with the times. So it's really promising.
Yeah. So we're at the top of the hour here, Darryl. How's your book coming, and when can our listeners get a hold of one?
It's going great. I told the printers I wanted one more proofreading of it. I'm halfway through it right now, so tomorrow I'm going to finish the final proofreading, and I'm going to send it off. I already have the deal all made out with them. So according to them, it'll take 2 or 3 weeks to send me a proof. Then it'll take another 2 or 3 weeks to get me the final copies. So on that timetable, by the end of May, I should have them. I officially set the date for June 20th because I wanted there to be some leeway. But I would say I could start shipping the books out at the end of May. Fantastic. And they can get a hold of these by your website, which is? That's right. You can go to nextdensity.com. That's NEXTDENSITY, nextdensity.com. And if you want to pre-order, I am offering rewards. I did start some kind of fundraiser event. But they weren't picking up so fast because I'm not so well known. So I just scrapped that and just got a loan. So, but the people who still want to get rewards like different coaching and things like that, or an autographed copy, or a cover of the cover flat. I mean, you could pre-order, and that's promised. I got it all together for April, so I have that up right now. If you go to nextdensity.com, you can see the link to the web store. And anybody who wants to pre-order, they can pre-order now. And as soon as the book comes in, I'm going to ship it out. I anticipate in May. It'll be no later than June, but I anticipate in the middle of May. Fantastic. Cool. All right. Well, we're going to take us a short break here, and we will be coming back, and we're going to definitely talk about some more about the ETs and maybe some of the different races that are interacting with us here. And, Ramon likes the sociological aspects of these races that are visiting, so maybe we'll delve into that a little bit. So yeah, actually, just to kind of set the pace, I had between what you were talking about on the first show and our last guest, 7, I had like a type of epiphany what the next density would look like, at least for me, from what I've been experiencing. I want to bounce these ideas off you guys to see what you think. Well, anyway, and start out the next show like that. All right, guys, so we will be back shortly as soon as you can click on to the next hour. Or if you're out there listening on one of the other media formats, then pop on over to www.100thmonkeyradio.com, where you will find, I guess this is show number 240 on that website. So, lots of shows there, lots of good information, and... That's it? Only 240?
Only 240. That's just
God, you're lazy.
Well, we won't talk about the other 100 shows over on Truth Frequency or all the video or all that other stuff. But there's there's a lot of material there for you guys to check out. So we will be back in 2 shakes of a stick. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Namaste, my friend.
Solve the problems that divide.